Hello everyone, this is John here from 3DCoat Tutorials and welcome to my channel. So in this tutorial I'll be creating a Sci Fi Light in 3DCoat. So we're going to start off with this basic startup on the screen here. We're going to go to poly modeling for this exercise. Let's go ahead and select that and get in there. Alright, so basically I'm going to be creating some 3D objects that are more low polygons. We're going to start off with a 3D primitive and we're going to start by taking off the uniform division. This helps take away the, control of this thing. I'm also going to spread this out a little bit and make it a little bit wider. Sometimes it's easy to hit the wrong, control there, but you can always go back and redo it. All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to also shrink this down again on this. Again, real easy to control some of this stuff by just selecting the right things. And one thing I'm going to do here is take away all the other division here because I don't want it in my way. So we're going to go with 0, 0, 0. And this is going to be like the basic, form to create the unit. And this intersection will be where the light's at. So it's going to have its plate basically. So we're going to start off with a plate and we're going to start creating this with that objective. All right. So now that we have this, set up, I'm going to go ahead and hit apply with the add. So hit that, and now it becomes an actual object. So one thing I want to do here is I want to also basically come in here and kind of just modify this a little bit more, and we can do that with the select transform section, which is under geometry. So again, your main 3D primitives are in here, 2D primitives, all that good stuff is on the top on the add geometry section. So this is where everything is added or extended or something that's, created additionally. So we're going to now go over here to the top. We have these selections here that we want to select the edge tool. So we're going to select this edge here. And sometimes you got to zoom in a little bit to get the right edge, right? So I want to get this right here. And then I'm going to do the other ones as well. So this whole thing can be kind of beveled out properly. So hit the shift key while you're doing it. Hit this one here. Shift. And then we can kind of zoom out and we can use the Alt key to kind of rotate around. And we can move this a little bit into place here. And again, Shift. And there we go. Now we can zoom out with your right mouse button. And all my controls and everything's down below here, so it helps follow along. So every time I use the right mouse button, green, red is left. All right, so we're going to go down to the section that says basically, we want to go to the right here, which is the bevel, which is underneath this selected mode. So select bevel, and it comes up automatically with 1. I want this to be quite a bit more aggressive. So I'm going to bring that up, like 7.5, and then I'm going to rotate this around to make it nice and smooth and round. So like something like 10 for a nice rounded form. All right, so let's go ahead and hit OK. So we got that part done. Now the next step is to kind of create the inner part of this thing. So what we can do now that we've created this, we can go in here now and do a selection of the face. And we can now go in and look for the actual section that says inset. And this is really cool because you can just kind of pull this in now. And if you pull it in, it starts going, a little bit smaller. I don't want it to be too small because I don't want this to be, too out of control. Now, if you want to, redo this completely from scratch, then you could always go in and kind of, make this first and then bring it in. And that's another way to do it. And then cut it in. But I don't want to add all this geometry to it, which that's normally what happens when you do, a Boolean on this object. So I'm going to stick with what I have here for the form. And I'm going to hit basically, I'm going to do 4.5 to make it more of a round number, just like that, and hit OK. All right, cool. So this is like your inner piece. And what I want to do here is also bring this back through a little bit. So you can do that real simply by just, taking this and then extending it downward. So we're going to go back up toward the section that says, add geometry. This is where you're going to have the ability to do a smart extrude. So in here, I want to extend this downward a little bit. Again, this is my plate, right? So I'm trying to keep this as like an area of interest for this form to fit into. And it's just real simple. And if you want to go farther, you can. The only thing I would suggest is that if you want to do that, you can always undo, or you can go in here and just kind of bring this thing down a little bit more. Since we're already on poly or face mode, we can select this and we can hit transform, move this around just a little bit to get to the area where the arrow is right here. And you can bring this down. So this way it's just easier to, add a little bit more depth in here if you wanted to. So let's go and select this, bring this down. Yeah, that looks great. Okay. So one thing I like to always do before I do anything else, I want to take this object here. I want to duplicate this. And the reason I'm doing that is really just to get the face. Okay. So that way I can create the form that goes into this space. So to do that, we're going to select this right here. And we're going to basically make a duplication of that object, right? All right, cool. So what I can do now is I can hide this one. And we got a new object here, which is great. I can now go in and select the face. Now what I could do, let's just make it even simpler, right? It's only one face you really need to care about. You can hit OK here. I'm just going to use this here. I'm going to select everything, right? Now, once I do that, I can go in here and hit the Control key and deselect this one here. And now I can just delete these, right? So that's a simple way to do it. So we're going to select this section here, right here. And we can actually just go with the actual object selection, right? Because it is an object. And we can see if we can just simply extrude this down. So let's do a smart extrude. And it wants you to pick the face that we're going to use. So let's just select this. And I'm going to bring this downward or upward. See the differences between the two? If I go downward, we're going to have it flip by accident. If you go upward, it's going in the right direction now. This way we actually have a normal, thing. And I'm just going to go this route because I could always, bring this back into the space if I have to. So it's good to make sure that you are not seeing through this thing. Again, always make sure the opacity is 100% so you don't see through it. It kind of confuses you. So we're going to go with that. And then I'm going to, basically enter and left click out of there. And now we have our form. Okay, so what can we do now? We can go in here and kind of unhide this and see what that looks like. So with this object now, we can go back here. I'm going to put this as light. Got the caps lock on. Light. And here will be the light frame. Okay, just like that. So now we know what we're doing here. So now with the light selected, we can select this. We can push this down into the space. Keep in mind that you don't want to go too far. And again, we could always kind of modify some of this stuff. So let's go with about there. Face, only want this one face selected. Go to edges. Let's go back to bevel. And do this again right here. And yeah, that looks a lot better. We can actually now bring this more. And this time I'm just going to bring this up so it's nice and smooth. Because again, I'm not going to sub-D this. And that's not the plan is not to sub-D. So I want to make sure I have enough, form on these edges to make it smooth. So there we go. All right, cool. So there's that. And again, we can adjust as we need to with this type of stuff. All right, so there's that. Okay, so the next step is we're going to go in here and kind of just hide the light. I want to make sure I have a nice, rounded area here. So let's go ahead and select this, double click it. And now that we got selected, we're going to again hit bevel here. Now again, I don't need 8 here. I can probably get away with more like 3 or 4. Just depends what you're doing. I could also bring this up a little bit more so it's a little tighter. Just so it has a nice, now I could go with, just 1 and I could bring this up more. And this kind of creates kind of a nice, looking, inner section here. And I think I like that better. And then if I can go back in here now, just again, take this one, Alt, and then this one. I mean, you could do Shift Alt on most programs, but for some reason, you can just do Alt. So now all these are selected. And again, I'm going back to bevel and making sure that this is way lower. I just want to give it a little bit of an edge like that. And you can do each one separately if you need to, but just like that, 3 would be perfect for this. And hit OK. Same with this outer. Now, depending on what you're doing here, right, we might want to add some more detail to this light assembly. And we got to think about those things because it's kind of critical that everything's done the right way, right? So another thing I could do is kind of go in here and just select the whole edge here. Let's go ahead and go here. Let's say I want to have this kind of, more wider on the bottom. We can just select this with the Alt key. Now, you can't do that, right? Because you have a face on the bottom. So let's select the actual poly, just like that. Go back to lines. There we go. We can rotate this out. Now, I could go in here, just scale this up. So we can hit the transform. And see how we got this little square here, a little rectangle box, whatever. We can pull this out, and that way it kind of pulls itself out in the proper, direction to create a nice, perfectly, symmetrical form. Yeah, that looks really cool. And I like that. I'm also going to hit the little extrude here because I need to go back here, select this one, and I'll extrude this down a little bit. Always has to go back and, finish what it was doing. So go to the side view. So we can do this in the right way. So right here, just bring it straight down. Do not rotate it, just like that. Okay. Left click, there we go. Now we can go back into selection mode, select this edge here, and Alt key. And here, I'm going to add, again, a bevel. And I'll bring that down a little bit more, just like that. Okay. So another thing that we can do here is we can select this one, Alt, bevel. Just trying to make sure we have a nice, detailed form. So I'm going to close this up a little bit, just to give it a nice smooth edge. I might go with 4 on this one because it's like the leading edge. Okay. All right, so we got to the point where we're starting to create some nice forms. It's looking really nice. Keep in mind is once you start adding a lot of detail to something like this, it's getting harder and harder to kind of maneuver things. Just got to think this stuff through kind of while you're doing it. But say we got your light here now. And I would definitely, take this and bring it into the space because I wouldn't want it this big. And simple way to do that, you could hide the frame. We can take this one here. Again, select this here. So we can just select the edge here. And we can also close this if we want. But I'm going to go ahead and do the maneuver to bring it upward. So again, transform. Move this around a little bit. See a little bit better what I'm doing here. Just pull this up now. And just like that. See, now we got a problem here. We got something going on here. So Control Z. We have too many actual edges here. So let's just go ahead and do that again. Let's bring it up. This is actually part of this. And we can just do that. And then we can now pull this up. See how this is, we had an extra line there. I didn't realize that it was there. That's fine. And again, that's pretty much all there. And I'm going to close the hole now. So cap. And I'll use the tries. Or I use the shift key like that and just hit enter. All right, just left click. There we go. All right, now it's done. Okay, we can now take this whole thing and move it. Let's unhide this first. I want to make sure that this light here is selected with the selection mode, like that. And then I can just bring this into the space like that. Yeah, I think that looks cool. All right, so we're in here now, and we're going to take this model and kind of add some more variations to it. And to do that, I'm going to go in here and go to the top view. And we're going to kind of just go in here and just figure out a way to make this look really nice. So I'm going to come here, and we're going to do the actual section here, which is split rings. We want to select this, and we don't have to have anything selected, but I'm going to get this right down the center of this space, just like that. I want to get back to where I was. I want to just do one click, right? So it did what it's supposed to do. We'll also do this one. See, it did what it's supposed to do. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and select the actual faces so I can kind of modify these. So I'm going to select it and go all the way up and make sure I get the whole thing. And then do the opposite side as well. Again, it just takes a little bit of figuring out what you want to select here. So I'm going to go all the way down. And I'm going to make sure I get all the way down on the other side as well. So it's going to go all the way around to the edge here. Okay. And then the same thing on the other side, all the way over, and then this side as well. I got to move over this a little bit out of my way. So it's a little easier to kind of do this. So bring it up. Okay, start selecting, go across. And before we start actually doing anything here, we got to make sure everything is completely selected, right? So we got to get that all the way down, and the other one as well. Okay. So let's double check everything, make sure we got everything selected. Again, we want to not have the main face, that is the big center section here, but we want everything else. Okay, so let's go ahead and now do the Smart Extrude. And we're just going to pull this up a little bit so it actually creates a form all the way around this space, basically. Real simple to do, right? Just pull it out. So about right there. And now we got the form. So very easy to do, very simple and cool. All right, so we got that done. Now let's go ahead and start maneuvering some of this stuff. All right, so we're going to select the line selection now, and we're going to, or the edge, and we're going to actually start selecting all these actual edges of these pieces that we just created. So select the line, and we're going to go in with the Alt key and just select each of these sections, and we're going to go all the way around and make sure that all of them are selected throughout. So that one as well, these two as well, and continue to go around. There we go. And we're going to rotate this around just a little bit to get to the last section here. Sometimes you need to move it around. Okay, so let's go and select this again with the Alt key. And there we go. Now we got them all selected. We're actually now going to add a bevel to this to kind of add in some smoothness on the edges. So go to bevel, select it, and we're going to go with a little bit smaller. Instead of 1, we're going to go down and about right about there, about 0.3 something, and about 3 actual segments is perfect for this edge. All right, cool. So that's that. So now we're going to select the inner pieces as well. All of these all the way around. As long as they go around, we can select it just like it is. And that one too. Okay, cool. So same thing here. We're going to bevel as well and select it. And again, we're going to bring this down again. A bit smaller, quite a bit smaller. And again, 3 is good with this inner small section here. So we can actually bring it down to even 1 if we wanted to. And I'm good with that. Just to add a little bit of an edge there. That's all we needed for that little space. All right, cool. This polygons is better. All right, so we're going to hide the actual top section here. And we're going to see what this looks like. So again, we're going to go in now and also do the split on this thing. So we're going to actually select it and do basically the actual split rings. And we're going to go now to the inside of this piece and start selecting the same thing like we did before with the 4 sections, not 6, but 4. So we're just going to reduce this down, make sure it's the same amount, right? And we can click. If it doesn't work right, undo, and we can do it again. I'm going to hide everything but that again. All right, so back in here, we're going to do split rings. We're going to go up to the top here and just click. There we go. Now that worked. And this one as well, click. and that worked as well. So now we got all those sections, broken up. We're going to now take these sections and kind of bring them inward to kind of create the same effect. All right, so now that we've gotten this kind of placed and I like the design, I got to do a few more things here, which would help, kind of make a better looking, section here and these sections here. I got to kind of pull this away from this area here. And this will really help drive a better, look on this thing. So one thing we can do here is we can actually go and select these lines. This would be kind of important to do. So I could just select these. You could always hit the Alt key here. Actually, let's do this again. Alt. And that's really good. And then we can go in here and do this one too. So select this here and hit the Alt key. And I'm going to go right in the middle. There we go. And I'm going to also basically go to center mass. So this way it's kind of like in the center of this whole thing. And then I'm going to pull this away from each other. So I just want to break it up a little bit from this space because it needs to have a place to kind of fall into. And yeah, that looks good right there. So now we can go in here and do the same thing here. So let's select this with the Alt key. And again, select Alt and center. There we go. Same thing here. We're going to pull this, and it's in the center, so it's perfect. So let's pull it the other way now. So about the same distance as what you did before. Kind of eye it. About there. And that's great. All right, so we got this half. And I could have done the opposite side exactly the same time, but anyway, we're going to have to do this again. So let's just do this real quickly. Again, I can mirror this over later, but I don't want to do that. I just want to simply basically do this. So again, I got this kind of like here. I'm going to center mass, and I'm going to pull this out just like I did before. Again, this is going to be a very small section of this object, so it won't be too noticeable. So it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but I still want a very clean object, of course. So right about there. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and left click off of that. And again, go back here, Alt key, and Alt key. Same thing, pull it the other way. About the same distance. There we go. All right, cool. This is going to help drive the ability to now just get this kind of stuff, properly aligned. And yeah, it'll be good. All right, so what can we do here? We can go in here and break this up with a line. So let's go ahead and use the actual, again, same thing we did earlier. We're going to split it. So we can split ring, but I also want one, not two. I could actually do two and then kind of move them into place, which is not a bad way to go. So I could do that. Now, if it didn't happen correctly, undo. So again, left click. Again, same thing here. We're just doing it all around. So everything has a place, right? Now we could take these lines, select them by using this. And again, we can kind of go in here and just Alt key, select that. And I'm going to put this into the center mass. And I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and, something's going on here. I got something else selected, so I'm going to actually unselect. I'm going to hide the frame for now, for a second. Make sure I got only this section here. So let's do this again. Alt. All right. And this one here. This one. And this one. Okay. So we got all these four selected. I'm going to put it to the center mass. See how it kind of went right here, which is perfect. Now I'm going to hide this here to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to now pull this out, basically, undo. I didn't want to move that. I want to make sure that this is selected. So let's pull this out, and we're going to get it past that edge a little bit farther right. I think right about there. Okay, what I need to do is I first need to go here. Make sure you have it selected, hit the Alt key. And the Alt key. Right, we got those two selected. Let's unhide now. See, these are a little bit, this one's actually okay, but this one's a little bit off. So let's go ahead and unhide this again. Zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and unselect this. And now I can unhide this again. I just need to move this over a little bit. Just move it over. We want to make sure that when we kind of, bring this inward a little bit, it will not affect this. And you see that this is a little bit different as well. I need to kind of fix this. So again, Alt, and we can move this over just a little bit, just getting away from that edge. Yeah, I think that looks good. And we can now go in and use the selection tool with this. Just select something different. Let's go back to faces. And I'm going to now use this. Okay, so let's just bring this up a little bit. I'm going to go in here and just do that, right? And this. I'll work on this in a minute. So, Control. We're going to take this piece here away. We'll take two of these away. I don't want it to be too much. And now I'm going to go ahead and just bring this in so it kind of just has a little bit of a cut, right? Just like that. All right, let's see how this looks. Yeah, I think that looks good. I would definitely go ahead and add a little bit more detail here now that we've done that. Before I do that, let's continue. I'm going to go ahead and deselect everything here. We got to kind of, work. We got that worked out. Again, I want to make sure I do the same thing on this one now. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and hit this one with the Alt key. Make sure it's lines. And then Alt. Okay, let's go ahead and now go back and select these other lines so we can kind of get this in place as it should be. So let's go ahead and select it. I'm not sure why that's not selecting here, but let's go ahead and use the Alt key, and let's do this again. Bring this up a little bit, and we can select this again, Alt key. Okay, cool. So again, I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to unhide this so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to hit this to the center mass, go to the top view. Just make sure that this is kind of lining up properly. I'm going to pull this both out, and we can do that with the actual scale. Let's just pull until we get past those sections. I don't need to go too far with it. I think that's perfect right there. Get us where we need to go, and we can left click. Now we can hide this again, and we can select the actual faces like we did over here. The same process. We're just going to go in here and just kind of select it. So I'm going to do this, Control Z. I'm going to again select faces, and I'm going to make sure I have this selected. I don't know why it always unselects that, but we're going to select it just like this. So we're going to pull this in and pull this down. And then we're going to control, and we're going to control two more spots. One there, one there, one there, one there. Okay, cool. Same thing. We're going to pull this in. Not a lot, just a little bit. Takes a little bit of finessing. So right about there. Cool. Okay. So we can actually get off of that now and go to something else. And yeah, so that one's done, and now we can start going in and adding a little bit more, clean detail to it to make it kind of just work better. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and go with your lines, and we're going to go right over here, just like we did before. Select, 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 select. We can now move this around. Alt, 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 and one more. Alt. Okay, we can now go in and bevel this, which will make it a lot smoother. Just adding a little bit more, detail, just to make it really clean looking. And we can even go with something like that. It's fine. And we can hit the OK. Cool. Now I'm going to do this one as well. All right, let's do this again. I'm going to kind of scale this down a little bit. I want it to be too big. Select the line here. And again, let's start selecting. So we're going to hit the Alt key here. Be careful. Sometimes you get some problems. Kind of just softly select what you need to. Here. Alt. And Alt. All right, cool. Let's go to the other side. Do the same thing. See, this is kind of, I'm going to have to fix that as well. So probably want to do that first. I'm not sure what happened here, but okay, we can go in here and kind of just get these ones here. You can kind of deselect these other ones. I don't know what happened there, but it's all good. We can now go in and we can reset axis to center mass or auto fit in local space. All right, let's just do this. I'm going to pull this over with this and bring it in just a smidgen, just so it kind of lines up properly, right? All right, cool. That's all we needed to do here. And now we can go in and kind of, do the other part of it. So let's just clean this up a little bit more. I think, yeah, that looks a lot better already. So Alt key. All right, so let's do this again. Be very careful with what you do with your fingers here. If you make a mistake, because you have to do it all over again. Okay, so again, Alt, 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 and right here. All right, so we got these all selected, right? We're going to add in another bevel. So again, go down farther, right where it says bevel, under selected, and we're going to select it. Now, you notice that's way, way, way too big. So we got to bring that way down. And we kind of want to get a little bit closer to see how things are looking. See how this is kind of like causing some problems there? We just got to be very careful with whatever happens here. See how that one is just causing a little bit of an edge issue? And yeah, just like that, just a little bit. That's all we needed. All right. So now that's done. I think this is going to look nice just the way it is. Okay. So now we got this and that. And it looks like, there's a piece here that kind of looks like the light kind of falls into place. And it's meant to be. All right. So I think I'm very happy with how this came out. And now the next step is to paint it. So let's get going on that. All right. So we've already got our model, right? And we're going to now take these two objects and bring them into the retopo/paint room. So we already got, our poly set up, which is fine. There's a couple things we could do. We could actually take this whole thing from here and just send it to Blender and then send it back over as an OBJ. And it'll be real easy to paint it that way. That's one option. or we could take the existing and kind of just put it in Paint Room and then start working it that way as well. So let's go ahead and go, first of all, to I'm going to bring this stuff down so I can see a little bit better. And I want to make sure that I go into the other mode. So I'm going to go out of modeling and I'm going to go into the paint space. So go here and painting. Now it won't show up here. The reason why it won't show up here is because we need to bake it. So that's our first step, is we got to go in here in the modeling section and actually, take this and bake it. So let's bake this thing. Bake with no map per pixel. So I'm going to make sure I have both of these selected. And I'm going to bake with no map, and there we go. Now it's going to come up with some other information here. I just normally leave it as is. And I normally go with whatever it's suggesting as the inside and outside depth. Sometimes you might need to change this depending on your object. So hit OK. And I'm going to do 4096. I want to have a nice high quality, form. And this is going to be a actual, very clean object. I'm going to make sure this is set for Blender because that's where I'm going to bring it to later for normal mapping. And we can also change this to, say, Sci Fi Light Assembly. Okay, hit OK. And hit OK. And it's going to take a few minutes to go through the process, and I'll be back. Okay, it finished what it was doing. I'm going to go now to the paint section and see if we can see it. So we're going to go here, select painting, and there it is. So we have our model, and let's take a look at this thing. You can see it a lot better now once it's in this type of shading mode. And we can see that it really did come out really nice for the spacing, as well as edge work as well. So it does have a nice form, and it looks like it's very clean. So that is kind of how you do this. You bake it. Your map is over here, and we have our two different colors here. I am going to bring this into another program, later on, and I will be adding in, some more details like a bulb or something inside, but I'll do that later on. And I'm just kind of showing the process. So these two are kind of set up, ready to go, and we're going to start working it now. All right, so that's done. I'm also going to hide this. I don't want the light here. See how this is kind of like showing up here? It's like kind of shadows, but that's okay. I'm going to go back to, paint object, and make sure that only light frame is on, layers. And in here, this is where I'm going to start, adding some things. We're going to go first, edit, calculate occlusion, and hit OK. Takes a second. Okay, so that added my ambient occlusion map. And now I'm going to go back in again, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add in the calculate curvature. And what I'm doing here is I'm just adding it to this object itself. I don't want to add it to the other one because I kind of want to make sure that's a kind of a see-through object. All right, so cool. So we can go in here now and kind of just start adding some colors. So if I want to go in here, I can either go to a default and just set up my own colors, or I can take something that's already been created, or I can add my own, or I can go to something, like I said, that's already been done by somebody else. So if I select this, go to the metal section, and there's all kinds of, different, textures here that would be very cool to use. Takes a second sometimes. It's thinking. Okay, let's go back. Metals. Okay, we're in the metal section. Now, if you kind of bring everything up, you can see that we can make some really nice, forms. We can take something like this, for instance. And we got our preview here. I'm just going to show you what that's going to look like, right? Because we're really focusing on the actual frame, right? So it's going to be very rough, and a lot of the metal is showing. Now, we can go in there and kind of just, this is very helpful, because we can see what we're getting. I'm going to go in here now and just right click and actually duplicate that. And now that I'm there, I could actually start using editor to kind of, modify this a little bit. And with the preview, it kind of really helps you define what we need to do here. So I'm going to take some of this down a little bit. I don't want it to be so aggressive, but not too much. See, now that's showing a lot of rust. I also want to take this down, I think, a little bit. See, this is your rust color. And I kind of want the amount to be a little bit less, so we can kind of dial this down a little bit. I don't want it too rusty. I want to bring this back up just a little bit. Kind of like that. I also want this color here to be a lot more obvious. So here, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to bring down the edge a little bit. See how that kind of just helps me kind of just give me a little bit of an edge. I don't want too much. I kind of want to make this a little bit different color too. I think more of a bluish. See how that metal is kind of, this is like your metal, right? So we kind of want more of a darker. I'm going to even go darker. I want a nice dark edge. This is your paint layer. So if you go here, let's go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to change the paint layer a little bit. So let's go here. I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. I want this to be a little brighter and a little bit more blue. I think something like that. All right, I'm starting to like what I'm seeing here. I'm going to bring the degree down as well. First of all, just take this down just a little bit more. I don't want too much rust. I kind of like that. Now, with that showing, I mean, I did bring this down, and it is looking a lot better. I think I'm also going to bring this down just a smidgen as well. Something like that. So let's see what this looks like now with the fill brush. So as long as you got the brush on, you're good. You could select it and hit it. And it'll come out with its color all the way around. There we go. And if you don't like the sizing and you need to actually add a little bit more, detail to it, you can bring this up with this, scaling this up a little bit. And this kind of shows you what you're going to get, while you're scaling. See, right here is a little bit more, roughness. We could try this. So I'll try it again. And yeah, that is a little bit more blue and a little bit more edgy. And I kind of like that. So I could also go in here and kind of just use the brush if I want. And this is helpful because when you use this, you can get a lot more color. And it's going to be a lot more, visible. So we can just do a quick snap. It might take a second to finish. And I'll do one over here just to get a lot more, coloration here. All right. So we could save this color. I think that looks really nice. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. See that? That looks really nice. It has a nice, coloration. Not sure what this is all about, though. We're not going to really see this anyway, so it's not going to hurt us, but not liking the way that was forming there, but it has to do with the way all these polys and faces are. But again, if you're not going to see it, you don't need to worry about it, so keep that in mind. All right, so let's go back to the other object now, and we're going to start working on that. So we got this layer. I'm going to add a brand new layer as well for the light. All right, so let's continue. I'm going to the paint object now. I'm going to actually bring this in. All right. So what I want to do, just to make this simple, right? The problem is I got to paint on this because when I did the actual bake, it took and baked this color onto here. It just does that for some reason. So how do we get around that? We can go in here and kind of just get rid of it. So I'm first going to go in and go to my paint objects. I want to make sure the frame is not there because I don't want to screw with the frame at all. I want this to be kind of worked. So how do I do that? You can just use a simple erase tool. Make sure that this is selected. And we can kind of go in and just take the whole thing and just erase it. So one big, rectangle over the top of it. Now, if it's not doing what you think it's supposed to do, it's because it's on this layer. So again, let's do this again. Do this, erase. And see, now you don't see it, right? Because the layer is gone. Perfect. So let's go back here now. And we can now go back to the other paint objects so we can kind of see what we're doing. Paint objects, we're going to unhide this. And we can go back to layer. And it seems like everything's hidden, but I'm not sure why this one is also erased because I didn't erase that. Okay, when something like this happens, we can go in and hide this one. I just want this object to be selected and go back to layers. And I'm going to go to, I'm actually going to add another layer here, brand new. We'll call this paint. Again. So there we go, paint. And I'm going to go in and just use that texture that I just did a few minutes ago. So first of all, go back to metals. I had it saved here. I created it here. And the one I came up with was this blue, this one right here. And I'm going to take that eraser away. I'm going to use the fill tool or brush tool. And see how it's right here? You just select it. And there we go. It's starting to paint it. And what I could do now is do the fill. So I see the whole thing. Might take a second. So I'm also going to suggest that you just use a brush and kind of just go over it because this way it will really make it nice and clean. If you have some issues, you could just bring this way up and just kind of hit the whole thing with a brush. Might take a second, but anyway, once it's done, it looks nice. All right, it finished its actual section here. And yeah, that looks really nice. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this one. This will be, I'm just going to call this glass to make it simple. So I know what that is. And I'm going to go back in here and just make sure that I'm selecting only the light here. And just take this off. And there we go. And you can't see it, right? So I'm going to hide this for a second. And you kind of see the background here, which is fine. Make sure that we have this set up. Glass. So pass through, add depth. Painting objects. And we got these lower, right? And now I'm going to go over here and kind of go back to the actual default, which would be here, default. Now, in here, you'll see these are see-through, and these are see-through. These are all see-through. So I could use any of these to kind of help with this. I'm going to just go with this one and see what that looks like. Now, when I have this here, we can do a quick brush and see if that gives us, ability to see the form. See how it's kind of there? It's actually like a glass material. It's see-through. Kind of hard to tell, but it really is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now if I unhide, see how this is kind of like showing? We could also do this just to make sure you got everything right. You can do something like this all the way there. Select it all, and you're done. Okay. So this is now like a see-through. And now if I go back here to the paint, we can unhide this. And this kind of causes like a glass material on the top. Kind of hard to tell here. However, it is there. What we can do is we can go over to now the rendering mode and see what we got. So let's go to render mode and just get over here And you can see that this is kind of like a glassy kind of look. And, the objective, of course, would be putting in a nice, bright light inside here. So we can do that. Let's just go ahead and zoom out a little bit. See how that kind of looks? It looks kind of like dark, right? Because it's kind of close to that other area. So let's go ahead and let's do something else here. I'm going to go in now to, first of all, I'm going to save this out. Save. I don't want to lose everything I've done. All right, so we can just go into the actual modeling room, back to where we started. And I'm going to basically hide the light. Now, the reason for that is I want to put something in here that is going to, add light to this thing. So I'm going to just do a quick 3D primitive. I'm going to do a disk. And I'm going to take the uniform off again. I'm going to shrink this down quite a bit, like that. Again, I'm going to add just a little bit of sides here, just to make it look a little bit better. I'll go with like 12. I'm going to take this down. There's no reason for that. And the cap could be just 1. I don't need all that detail. I'm also going to rotate this whole thing because it's at the wrong angle. We can go to the side view, right, and we can rotate this. Rotate it with the control key. It kind of does it in exact quadrants. There we go. And we can now go in and kind of just pull this out, bring this back. I'm going to get it to about there and to about here. I'm also going to bring this down just a smidgen. I want this to be below. I'm also going to now use the actual symmetry button here. Symmetry. Enable. And on the, actually not the Y, but the X. And then when I pull this out, we're going to get more than 1. Just like that. And now that we've done this, we're going to add this as a bulb. So I do not want to add it to the same thing that I've been doing. So polygroup over here. I'm going to add a brand new one. So plus, and we'll say bulb. Okay. So now that this is selected, we can create it by applying add. There we go. So we have our lights. All right. So what do we do now? All right, so in the molding mode, I have the bulbs. Okay, I'm going to bring these down just a smidgen more. First of all, I want to see the glass. It's kind of hard to see the glass. Or if I could put the light in here. See, there's the light right there. We can see now, right? Where's this at? If you go to the side view, right view, this is the height, right? So we want to make sure that this, like right here, this box is underneath this. So let's bring it down, and we're going to go a little bit past that into the space like that. All right, so it's kind of in place, and it's kind of, can't see it because it's in there, right? So now that we got the bulb, we can hide these other things. All right, so we can, if we make a mistake, one thing we can do is we can just rebake the whole thing because they're all, they're all here now. I got all 3 objects. I got this object, that object, and the light bulb. So now that I've got those 3 objects, I can just go in here and, redo the bake. So let's just do that. So first of all, we're going to bake. Bake selected. We're going to hit OK. And it's going to go through and bake it for us. And the problem is when you already have a bake, it's going to stop you from baking. So one thing we got to do is we got to take these away. And I like doing that. I got to go and do it anyway. So go ahead and delete those things. Okay, so in here, let's just go ahead and delete all these. Because again, with this here, it's going to cause problems. but it'll be real easy to go backwards. So let's go ahead and get rid of the normal map. Go ahead and get rid of the color map. Unhide, unblock that. Just get rid of it. Okay. 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 And it's fine to keep that the way it is. I'm going to go back now to the modeling section. Again, it's really good to get all your objects in one place. And sometimes you have to go backwards, but so okay, we got all three of these now. I'm going to go in here and now bake. So bake with normal map. And if it doesn't come back with everything as you need, then there's a problem. So let's just go ahead and we're going to make sure that we select them all. So select all three and bake. Bake with normal map with pixels and hit OK. And it goes through a process and it creates it for you. So then you can go back to the paint mode or paint room and it should be here. Now, if it's not here, there's a problem. So let's go ahead and just close this out and restart it. Okay, so we're getting ready now to bake all three objects. We got the bulbs now, we got the lens, we have the main frame. And we're going to go ahead and select all three of these. And I'm going to hit the bake and bake with normal map per pixel, just like that. It's going to be a little bit bigger than everything, which it's supposed to be. And we're going to hit OK. Now it's going to come up with your mapping. So if you have a problem that you won't remap after you make a mistake, you could always, close it out and redo it. Just make sure you save your work. And yeah, that's the easiest way to get this worked out. So now if I go in here, I can just make sure I select these as a bit higher, detail. And I don't want that much. I want 4,000. So right there is good. And I said, okay. All right, it created another duplicate of the poly object, which is kind of weird, but let's go ahead and go now into Paint and see what we got. So let's go here, and there we go. So we got everything kind of in here. We got the bulbs, we got this, we got that, and we got all three. So that's kind of what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and hide the light frame, the light at 12, and just keep the bulbs. And here, I'm going to go in here and kind of just add in a nice color. Again, I'm going to bring this into another program anyway and just make this into a mission. But for now, I'm just going to bring this down a little bit, kind of like that. And then we can go in here and kind of start adding in some detail. So with these lights, I kind of want to go in and just add a new layer. And I don't want to add in metal. I don't want to add any of that stuff. I just want to add in a emission to this. So to do that, we're going to add a nice, bright light to it. So here I'm going to add a new layer, just like that. And in here, layer 2, I'm going to call this emission. All right, so in here, I'm going to change this to not a standard, but an emission. So let's go use it as an emission. This will help bring the emission together. And yeah, I think I want to take off the metal. I don't need this to be metal. And that's pretty much it. Now in here, when you select this, texturing, I want to go to the default, which is here. And we can go to the bottom here and just say plus. And once we select this, we can select the light color that we want. So we can make this more like a nice yellow, right? Something like that. Simple, right? I don't really care about anything but that, just the way it is. See, it's really nice. And I don't care about these other things. It's just a nice, light. So let's save this. And I'm going to hit the actual fill. So let's use the fill on this. And there we go. So now it's filled the whole thing. And if you want to add a little bit more to it, you can always use the brush, to make it a little bit brighter. Again, for some reason, the brush actually adds a little bit more color than the actual fill for some reason. I don't know why, but it should be that way, but that's just the way it is. So you see now how this bright yellowish light, it works great. Okay, so that's one way to do this. So now we're going to go back in here and take these two. And what I really want to do is I really want to take the light frame here. I don't care about the other one. I need to start working on this. So this has to have a few things to it. So on this layer, I'm just going to select the one layer. I'm going to add in a couple layers. So Now that's only just that one. I'm going to go ahead and go edit, and we're going to add in the calculate occlusion. And this will make it a lot better because you're going to have shadows and stuff to add to the look of this. And ambient occlusion basically is what we're creating here. See, that looks a lot better with the colors. And another thing that I'll add to this is the calculate curvature. And I always use the sphere and hemisphere. I leave everything else just the way it is. So once we're done with that, it takes a second, but once it's done, it's good. Now I'm going to add a brand new layer, and this layer is going to be called Light Fixture, because it's kind of like a light. All right, so now we're going to go to the actual main object here, which will be the light frame, not the bulb. And we're going to go in and kind of select a different material. I'm going to go to the metals. And in here, I got a preset up metal that I really like, so I'm going to use that. Again, if you want to get more details on this, I'll be having a class soon on this whole process, so it's a little easier to follow along. So again, I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. See how it kind of changes the sizing as you bring this down and up? You can control how much of that metal is. See how this is a little too small, a little bit smaller. There we go. It's just kind of more flaky. I think that looks really nice. I'm going to go with now a fill to start off with. So select the fill, select it. And there we go. Again, it's really nice if you use the actual brush tool. And I'm going to use the actual rectangle because this way it'll just be a lot more darker blue. A little bit, more colorful is what I'm trying to get here. It's going to take a second longer, but that's okay. Yeah, I think that looks a lot better. All right, cool. So I'm good with that. I'm good with the light. And if you bring this back in now, you can't see this one, right? Because it's underneath. But now if we want to go with the light case itself, we can do this. Now this one's a little different because it really comes down to that it's going to be a transparent, mode. And the problem is with the layering here. So if you go back to paint mode, you could select this light frame, right? All I want to do is affect this light. So if I select this, I go to layers. In the layers, I need a new, one here as well, but I need to kind of just go in here and just kind of get rid of some of the stuff. I don't want this, light to be covered. So if you go here, you can actually go in and kind of just, we never added this to this map, so we're okay because it would be in here. But we want to add a complete new layer. So let's just add a layer. We're going to call this glass. All right. And in glass, we're going to go in and now go to a texture. We're going to go again to the default. And in here, we can start collecting a glass. So if you select plus, you can come in here with its own opacity. I'm going to bring this down quite a bit. Something like 35%. I'm going to take the metalness completely down. I can take this down to make the glass shiny. And the depth completely 0. And we can actually take this as well and bring it down to like 30-something%, something like that. And I think that looks really good. And we can just save this. I'm going to change the color to more of a blue. More like that. Hit OK. And you can see it's going to be kind of a blue color. And we can save that. Okay. So one more thing that we want to make sure that this is, we want to make sure that this is more of not the standard, but this is a pass-through. Pass-through will help add in a little bit more clarity so it will see through. And there we go. So we can do the brush now and just start, brushing it. We can do as simple as that. Do it again. Again. And now it's becoming more of a see-through thing. You can't really tell by looking at this, but if you kind of rotate it and you put this with the other objects, you start seeing the differences, right? You can bring this in and this in, and you can now make sure all these are selected. And we can go now to the actual, render mode and see, what does that look like. This one is not as see-through as it should be. So we got to kind of make something change here. So what we can do is go back to the paint mode, and there's an issue with this for some reason. So there it has to do with something is actually showing up on the background. So we need to erase it first, because sometimes you have another material that might have been added to this when it was baked. So we're going to just add or use the actual brush, but we're going to go to eraser. So eraser, and make sure that we got the rectangle. We're going to do this first, just like that. And I'm going to go, first of all, into the layer. I'm going to do this again. Erase. I'm going to go back to the, I think I'm going to go back to layer 0 and see if that would work. See, now we're getting somewhere. Because before we had this kind of showing up here. You can use the brush. I'm going to use more of a brush. Just kind of erase the whole thing. See how it's now nice and clean? Just like that. Okay. So there we go. Now if we go back to glass, we can now add in the brush. Let's go back to glass. And here we got this. We can now use the brush, and we can use this. I'm going to bring this down a little bit, and just going to bring this like this, just like that. Now we got a nice see-through material. Sometimes you got to go and try to figure out what's causing it, right? So now that we've done that, we got our own little glass. Okay, so we can go back in here now and just unhide these things. And you can start seeing that there's these other objects in here, right? Great, that's what we needed. So, all right, so I created the actual light assembly as well as the light glass. And I'm going to just basically take all this and bring it into Blender and render it there. I think it's much easier to do the emission there. And again, just getting myself familiar with those type processes on this platform. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and take it over there for now. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to go now to the file section, and I'm going to do export objects and textures. And you want to make sure that this thing right here is clicked on, which is export geometry. And I'm going to call this basically, I'm going to call this like light assembly. And I'm going to also call it Sci-Fi. So start off with Sci-Fi, light assembly. And again, it's going to go to 3DCoat, which is fine. I'm thinking though, I want to put this more like in the actual D drive where I keep everything. So I'm going to go ahead and just move this over. I want to make sure that this goes in the right place, just like that. All right, so we're going to continue to save this out to a different location. I'm going to create my own folder for this light. So again, the unit will go over into one of these folders here. So I'm going to do new folder. I'm going to call this light assembly. And inside here will be Sci-Fi Light assembly object. Save. Cool. So that's set up, and now we got to do the export texture. So we got two things we got to do. We got to make sure these are both selected. And I normally go with the Z coordination system, so that way it's in the right location when I bring it into Blender. And then I'm going to also select this. And again, I'm going into the same location, light assembly. That's perfect. So select folder. And then the actual thing will be called light. And I want to make sure it's going as a Blender file. I'm going to change this as well. This will be also Blender cycles. And in here, I'm going to change this so it's not like a couple things I do not need. I guess I could keep the emission, the normal math, roughness, base, and color. And yeah, go with all these actually. Make these into, put these as TIFFs. These are better quality normally. TIFF. TIFF. And TIFF. Okay. So let's go ahead and export it. There we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Everything's been exported, and I'm going to now go into Blender. All right, so I'm now back in Blender, and I'm going to bring that object in. So I'm going to import this OBJ. So make sure you select OBJ. And then again, make sure you go to the folder where you put it, of course. We put it in here, put it in here, and here's the OBJ. Now, it's already set up this way. I'm fine with that. Let's just see how this looks. Import it. And whoa, this is way too big. Let's just see before we do anything now, because it can be the wrong angle. So let's go ahead and go back. So this, go ahead and do undo. Control Z. And we can kind of zoom in here. Now, way too big, of course. So let's go ahead and change that. Import OBJ. And again, this time we're going to do the Z. And we're going to go to 0.01. Cool. So let's go ahead and import that now. There it is. We can get rid of this now. And we got our object. So let's go ahead and put this now on the shading mode. Okay. So we're here now. And I got the object in front of me. And you'll see that it kind of disappeared for a second because it was trying to do the calculations of the image itself. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue with this thing. So a couple of things I want to do here is I want to make sure that this is set up not on Eevee, but on actually Decals, because that's kind of the way we saved it out as. And I also want to make sure that this is on GPU, not CPU. Much faster that way. And I'm also going to change the amount of samples down to like 600. I normally don't go more than that in most cases. And we can go to color management. We can go to the type of look with high contrast. I'm also going to add in a nice mesh plane. So scale this up just like that. Let go. G key on the Z, and we can bring it down a little bit, right to about, not where the shadow is, but right when it stops. All right, so we can go to the side view to see if that looks right. Yeah, it looks right on the edge, so perfect. Okay, so we can do this, Alt-M. This is something to do with hard ops, so we can add a blank material. And I can now go into the actual shading mode. And I can take this roughness down a little bit. So I want to make sure that this is actually on Decals as well. And I'm thinking maybe I will make this a little bit lighter, like that. And we can also do a nice HDRI. So let's do world, HDR. We can go to pull this out. We're going to go environmental texture. Open, and got a bunch of collections that I normally keep. You can select whatever you think is best for you. I'm going to go with something like Belfast. And I'm also going to do a Control T to do the actual set here for Light Wrangler. And I'm going to also bring this to about 225, like that. Let's go back to the standard layout section here. And I'm also going to change this a little bit. I want this to be a little different. So why don't we make this kind of like an, let's just do, back to shading mode. I got the plane selected. I'm going to go to object mode. And I'm going to make this more of a kind of a, you know, I think it would look better with a dark gray because it's kind of a sci-fi thing. I'm going to go with more of a metal floor just because I just think it would look better. Because again, this is kind of like a sci-fi thing, right? So I'm going to do something like that. Yep, and that's about it. And then let's go ahead now and look at the actual, go ahead and add in a light right about here. So I'm going to use my light operations. This is Light Wrangler. So we can do this. And we can just bring something over here. And I'm going to use the actual Alt key to kind of bring this up. And just like that. I'm also going to take the spread down a little bit. And I'm going to make this rectangle. So that way I have some control. Do something like this. Okay. I'm going to change the color to kind of a bluish. And I'm going to change this to HDRI. Something like that. Okay. So now that I've done that, let's go back in here. Something like this. Okay. So let's go back now to layout. Well, first of all, I want to go back to shading. I want to make sure this is all set up right. So I'm going to go back to object and I'm going to select it. And this, as always, for some reason, it never comes in the way it should, which is interesting. You think it would be fixed by now, but all right. So this is a rough map. So I'm going to select this, pull this out, and put this in rough. And again, normally roughness map is just a non-color. So there. I'm also going to do a duplicate. Bring this here, open, and we're going to select the metal TIFF. Open, again, non-metal, non-color, and to metallic. Okay, and a few more things that we can do is this is great. And yeah, I'm good with that. So, all right, we got that set up. Let's go ahead and select this now. Now, the problem that we're having here. So the problem is that we want to make sure that the glass is see-through. We need to kind of deselect everything here and kind of remove it from the other object. So we're going to select the edit object and we're going to select a couple of these actual faces on this object. And we're going to now select the actual select linked. And then we're going to go back to the mesh and separate this selection. This will kind of separate out from this object. So there are two objects now. And this is a real easy way to kind of go in and just modify this. All right, cool. So we got that. We can hide it. And yeah, that's perfect. So if you want to keep the transparency that came with 3DCoat when you brought it in, you got to make sure you export out the transparency map as well. And that way you can just link it to the actual alpha. When you do that, then it'll actually work out perfectly well. All right. All right, so in here, I'm going to change the light. I just think, I have a much better option with lighting over here. So I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to go to, most likely Sanctus. I just think the lighting is nice. So I'm going to go with that option instead of the normal standard, texture. All right, so I'm going to change the lighting itself on the actual, or change the material on the glass. And I'm also going to change the material on the actual emission sections here. So let's go and do that. So here, I'm going to go here, and I want to make sure that I hide everything but this. Now that I have it separated, right? You kind of see that it actually is like a cap. And I'm going to make sure that this becomes a glass. So I'm going to go to glass. Within Sanctus library, just has a great option here for glass. You can make it like more of a line or bump or just different type of materials, right? So it's kind of cool that you have these options. I kind of like something like this. Let's see how this looks. Maybe not that one. Let's go with this one. And I'm going to apply this. So first of all, select it, apply material, and see how it became a lot more like transparent. Again, it's really just made for glass. So it just has a really nice way to kind of just make it happen. And I can go in here and kind of just change some things. Like I want the light pass through and roughness a little different. Kind of thinking about the scale here. I might want to bring this up. See how this kind of becomes more rigid? That's kind of cool. This has a great option when it comes to this kind of stuff. See how that's really nice? Yeah, I kind of like that. I also want to make sure that I use more of a blue pattern. So if I go in here, I'm going to go ahead and just make this a lot more Make it even more yellow, maybe. Orange. I think we'll go with something like there. Nice light color. All right. So I got that now, and I'm good with this one. And what I'm going to do now is go back to this one. I'm going to make sure I hide this for a second. I want this here. Go to edit mode. I want to select this. Poly and a poly. I'm going to select the actual linked like this. And I'm going to basically just go ahead and go in here and select mesh and separate selection. Now that I've done that, I can kind of go in here and just select these. And I'm going to create my own light on this one. So I got this selected, right? I'm going to just going to take this off completely. We're going to do new. And this one will be an emission. So I can make the light bulb more of a kind of orangish. I kind of like this idea. And I'm also going to make this a actual emission right here. This changes over to more of an orange. Kind of like that. And I want to bring the strength up, right? I want this to be nice and bright like that. And I'm good with that. So let's go ahead now and unhide the other parts. So let's do this. I kind of want this to be more of a, not like you could see through it, but a little thicker, I guess. We could bring this down. See how it becomes a little bit harder to see through? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to select the light itself, and I'm going to pick it here. And I'm going to hit the G key. And on the Z, I'm going to make sure that I pull this downward. Kind of like this. Something like that. All right, cool. So let's get a nice view of this, and let's render it. So again, go back to layout. Bring it in a little bit more. I'm going to hit the Control-Alt-0. G. Oops. I'm going to take the camera here and just move it a little bit. Kind of like this. And another thing that would be kind of cool would be to, I think what I could do here is add in, so let's go and render this first. I'm going to make sure I bring this up a little bit in the quality. So we'll go 200. Okay. And let's go render. And then once we do rendering, we're going to take it into the actual compositor. All right, there we go. We got our object. Looks pretty cool. And I'm going to maybe change a few things, but now I'm going to go now and get out of here. I'm going to composite now. In here, I'm going to add in a new node. So let's add a new. And within this, I'm going to actually bring this out. And I'm going to do a glare. And I'm going to select this to image and this to image. There we go. Now we're going to have a really nice, beautiful, light here. And I think that's going to look really, really cool. All right, so what I can do is bring this up even more if I want. So let's do like 3. There we go. And I think, yeah, that looks really, really cool. I'm going to do a little bit more. Just like that. All right, so let me go ahead now and go back to the layout. All right, so we're going to now make the glass a little differently. And if you don't have like Sanctus, you can always do this yourself. So let's just do that. So I'm going to go to shading here and I'm going to create my own thing. So how do we do that? So we can just go ahead and select this whole thing, get rid of it. And this is out of here. We can even do this. I don't need this. And here we go. So let's go and bring this out. We're going to make this a glass BSDF or glossy. And we can also do this as well, glass. And yeah, just like that. And we can now bring this out as a mix shader. And we can do something like this. Like this. I think we're going to bring this here. Just like this. And we'll bring this over here like this. This can go here, right? And I want this to be more of a blue. This more of a blue. This has to be see-through, so got to make sure that this is completely transparent. This roughness can go down. We could also do something like this with the professional. Just like that. So this is one way to do it if you don't have a way to do it, right? Just to create the glass, we can do something like this. I'm also going to say, I'm going to make this thicker. I don't like it too thin. Bring this up a little bit. All right, so this is one way to do it. Okay, now I'm also going to use this again. Just kind of think about a different look. Do something like this. Apply. I also like this. Makes it a little easier. More like a bluish color. I'm also going to make this thicker. And that's kind of cool. I think I might even bring down the compositor just a little bit. I think I'll make this more like 2. That might be a little bit too bright, right? Okay, let's go with that. Go back to layout. And we can do a quick render and see what we got. So let's render this. All right, so here's the actual render within Blender. And I thought it came out really nice. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and any thoughts, please communicate, as well as thumbs up and subscribe if you like to see more of this type of content. All right, thank you. Have a great day.